breaking news, Cathy. It's 322.
Strange thing to say, but I've just been in to nominate myself to be leader of the Labour Party.
And it's all a bit North Korean, isn't it, this coronation? Who isn't on that list? All day, MPs have been trudging into the sweaty bowels of Parliament to nominate their dear leader, Andy Burnham.
It used to be a boy band, now it's a man band coming back.
Is he the Harry Kane of politics?
No, he's definitely not. No. I mean, I say that because, and no disrespect to Andy Burnham, but Harry Kane is a massive talent. And in my opinion, no politician is a massive talent.
The king is dead, long live the king. To succeed in politics, you need a certain amount of sycophancy. So while plenty of Labour MPs spent the last 2 years backing Sir Keir Starmer to the hilt, they know which side their bread is buttered. And now, as nominations open for the party leadership contest that isn't, after all, happening, they're all to a man and woman backing the new guy, Andy Burnham, including former Defence Minister Al Carnes, who junked his own nascent leadership bid on this very show 24 hours ago.
The critical component is that Andy Burnham is good at listening. He's listening to everybody, and he will take all of the different ideas, of which he will have thousands, coming from various different sectors of the Labour Party and indeed the professional tapestry across the UK.
Some MPs have been Burnhamites before the word existed, like the Deputy Labour leader Lucy Powell, also on the sofa yesterday.
I was at Andy Burnham's speech last week in Manchester, my constituency, and I think he set out a very, strong and compelling vision for how he wants to rewire the way the country works.
But plenty of ministers who backed Burnham's rivals in the past are keen to pay fealty too.
What I saw when I went to campaign in Makerfield was a real connection between Andy and the electorate, a real understanding in terms of that sense of hope and optimism and drive and purpose. And that is what we need to see in our political leadership so that we can then get on as ministers and deliver what needs to be delivered.
Did you get that subtle little hint at the end there? A plea, perhaps, to keep him in his job? But hey, here's Andy Burnham last month giving ministers past, present and future a bit of hope.
While the political direction I set is not up for negotiation, I will build an inclusive team at the very highest level so that all parts of the party and the country can see themselves reflected and represented in it.
Well, it's easy enough to build an inclusive team when there are no dissenting voices. But we don't, after all, live in North Korea. So as united as the Labour Party appears just now, it's a safe bet it won't last forever. So Andy Burnham has nominated himself to become next Labour leader. The process ends next Wednesday. He's been gathering support from his MP colleagues today and posted a video on social media earlier on.
Strange thing to say, but I've just been in to nominate myself to be leader of the Labour Party. The nomination process has opened this morning, so glad to see some MPs going in. I'm still the only candidate in the race. We'll get the first indication about 7 p.m. tonight of the first number of MPs to sign up, but the thing will go on over the next few days, so it won't be the final word. But yeah, it's all starting to feel very real.
Well, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is outside Parliament for us. Because, John, in the last few seconds, we've been finding out how many have backed Andy Burnham, haven't we?
Yes, breaking news, Cathy. It's 322, which by my calculation, I think is one short of the 323 he needs to be absolutely sure that he's got a majority and no other candidate can get the required 81. Most of the cabinets are on this list of 322, just been published on the Labour Party website, but I can't see Keir Starmer, I can't see Shabana Mahmood, but most of them are there. For example, starting with the A's, Douglas Alexander, and you go through, Yvette Cooper's there, Hilary Benn's there, going through all the names we expected, really. Alan Campbell, the leader of the Commons, Al Carnes, who you spoke to yesterday, Cathy, senior backbenchers like Sarah Champion, and then Yvette Cooper, yes, she's there. Mary Cray, another minister, Stella Creasy. I'm in the C's at the moment. Going through, there is The two Eagle twins, Dame Angela and Maria, they're both there. Chris Elmore, Whip, Bill Esterton, who's critical of government policy on net zero the other day, Select Committee Chair, going through Barry Gardner. Now, Barry Gardner was one of the first, sometimes known as Beijing Barry, over a controversy over Chinese funding a few years back. He was one of the first, Barry Gardner. Yeah, Barry Gardner posted a picture of the queue first thing this morning, actually. I mean, he's nothing if not keen. I mean, he has served just about every Labour leader from Blair to Corbyn, so he's perhaps hopeful of a job. Going further down the list, I've got Dan Jarvis, the Defence Secretary. I've got Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary to the PM. Looking further, I'm into the K's now. Liz Kendall, Stephen Kinnock, Peter Kyle from the Cabinet, Ian Lavery, left-winger, he was one of the very first this morning. Then Clive Lewis, the left-winger, Rebecca Long-Bailey, who stood back in, I think it was 2015, wasn't it, she stood. Then we go further down, we've got in the M's, I've got, Pat McFadden there from the Cabinet. Jim McMahon, former minister, Ed Miliband, there we go, Ed Miliband, tipped by some as a Chancellor of the Exchequer, not by everyone of course, there's a bit of a backlash about that potential appointment. Alex Norris, a minister, Kate Osborne, left-wing MP for Jarrow, right across the party really, Stephanie Peacock, the Sports Minister, Matthew Pennycock, another minister, Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, Starmer loyalist, she's there. And then we get further down into the R's now, Ellie Reeves, Rachel Reeves, the Reeves sisters, Solicitor General and the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Emma Reynolds, the Environment Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, the Chief Whip. And then we get Jake Richards, Junior Minister, Lucy Rigby from the Treasury. We're almost there into the R's. Now Shah, Andy Slaughter, nearly there. Oh, let's have a look. Wes Streeting, yes, he's on the list, of course. And then Nick Thomas Simmons, Minister. And then we get to, we're almost there. Paul Waugh, former journalist. Joe White. Who's for the...
John, you know what? It's getting a bit predictable now. Have you got to Z yet?
It's more interesting who's not there, isn't it?
Yeah. Can you tell us that,
now,
please?
Can I just bring you some words from Andy Burnham? Sorry?
Thanks. Well, just tell us who's not there, John.
I've got some words from Andy Burnham. Well, I just told you, Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, notable by their absence. They have still got Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, though. And also a lot of the Cabinet, I'm told, when I was over in the building earlier, were voting by proxy. Let me bring you Andy Burnham's words. Hot off the press. Well, we don't say the press anymore, do we? As the first day of nominations draws to a close, I'm deeply grateful to the 322 Labour MPs who've put their trust in me and nominated me for leader of the Labour Party. Their support, Andy Burnham says, comes from across the PLP and reflects a shared belief that Britain needs a new approach to politics. That's the circuit breaker I'm offering: power out of Westminster, an economy rewired for ordinary people, economy and good growth in every postcode. Just a little bit more. I want to empower MPs to bring the experiences of their constituents into the heart of government and harness the full breadth of our Labour movement, drawing on all its traditions and beliefs in pursuit of a common purpose. And he says he wants to thank every colleague. Now, the next stage, of course, is he's got to get some nominations from trade unions. And I can bring you a rather grudging nomination from the Unite Trade Union, headed by Sharon Graham, who's talked about possibly disaffiliating. She said it's the last chance saloon. That Unite's talking about a conditional nomination. The last chance saloon, says Sharon Graham. If warm words are not followed up by action, workers and communities prepared to listen now will walk away. And she ends by saying Labour will get one shot. They now need to take it. So that is from a leading trade union. He's almost over the line in terms of MP nominations, but let's wait and see what the Prime Minister and Home Secretary do.
Well, John, you've had quite a quiet day, so I'm glad we've given you a bit of work belatedly. And, you know, fantastic. You're obviously fantastic in knowing your A to Z, so congratulations. Thank you.
Well, they're in alphabetical order.
I know, John. I'm just teasing you. It was fantastic stuff, really good. All day, MPs have been trudging into the sweaty bowels of Parliament to nominate their dear leader, Andy Burnham. We bumped into Wes Streeting, dressed down in shorts, who'd actually been so keen he's been in 3 times, not only to sign his own forms, but to help others with theirs too. One MP said that Wes had joked that all the front bench positions in Andy Burnham's government are now gone. We'll see about that. But, you know, all of this is a bit of a formality after the last obstacle to Andy Burnham becoming Prime Minister was removed. And that was when Al Khan's, the former Defence Minister, spoke to me last night and said he wouldn't be running for the leadership. But MPs are desperate to pledge their allegiance, and they've got until Wednesday to do so. Former Labour Minister Caroline Flint and Conservative peer Arminka Helic are on the sofa tonight. Caroline, I mean, it's all a bit North Korean, isn't it, this coronation? Who isn't on that list? Apart from Shabana, that's interesting.
Well, give her a couple of days. She's still got some time there. I mean, I think it was bound to happen. As the other candidates started falling away, including Al Khan, who was, quite honestly, that seemed to be a bit of a joke that he was even putting himself up there in the first place. I mean, look, the Labour Party wants to come around Andy now and move forward as best they can. And so, yeah, I mean, this for Andy is the best moment in terms of actually all these Labour MPs signing up their loyalty to him. He's clearly sent out some positive message to the PLP about how he wants them involved. But also, you know, he's going to have to make some tough decisions and he'll be relying on their support in the months and years ahead.
I mean, Arminka, if you look back at Tory leadership contests, you know, some of them have been sort of summer-long hustings and it's all got very, you know, backbitey. But other coronations haven't worked out so well, have they, in the past for the Tories? You got any advice?
I think use this moment because it's your best moment.
Yeah.
You have the party in your hand and there will be disappointments from the moment you get crowned. After that, there are disappointments. There are people who like what you're doing. There are people who don't like what you're doing. But just embrace it. It won't last forever.
There are signs of trouble ahead, aren't there? I mean, you heard from John there. I was teasing him, but, you know, he had that line from Unite about conditional nomination. There are straws in the wind, aren't there, that this unity is not going to last?
Well, yes, there will be, and always is, I think, for anybody who's in politics at this level. But, you know, one of the biggest issues that he's going to face is the defence investment plan, because I think around Whitehall there are still, you know, discussions going on about what more individual departments can put into the coffers to pay for our defence needs going forward. So that's a big issue. The other issue that came out today was Sir Stephen Timms did his first part of his report on looking at disability benefits. It didn't say very much. It said the system isn't fit for purpose, but it also said, you know, we have to work within the resources that we've got. So that will be heading up in the autumn when Stephen Timms comes back with his next report. But the other thing about being inclusive, which is great, and creating a culture where everybody feels they can play a role and play a part, at the end of the day, you cannot please all of the people all the time. And that is a challenge for anybody who's a leader in any organisation, but in politics more than most. So I absolutely agree. This is the moment where he can tackle that head on and maybe make some hard decisions. And whilst he's in this honeymoon period, people just get behind him.
But Arminka, how much of a problem is it? You know, we've had a few hints from him on, he said he won't be squeamish about cutting welfare, for example. He's backed the defence investment plan, but we don't really know what the details are, how he'll get to 3.5% of GDP in terms of spending. But Arminka, how much of a problem is it that he hasn't been tested during a contest, as some of your leaders were, and we kind of knew what they thought before they went into number 10?
Well, I think it will depend on how he performs. If he performs well and he's got this golden hour, which is all golden few months.
Literally an hour, is it?
Golden hour, golden 3 months probably. If he's going to make changes, if he's really going to show how strong and powerful and united they are, that is when you're going to do it. If you do not do it, let's say by the party conference, and if you haven't made some really strategic decisions, like on defence, then you will start seeing that you are not really able to lead the way you would like to. And it does help if you have had a contest. But I think that the final decision is going to come on the basis of how much you have achieved. You've got to achieve, your output has to be good, it has to be strong. People have to feel that your premiership has made difference in their lives. And members of parliament have
Good
to
growth in every postcode.
But members of parliament also have to be able to go back to their constituencies and show that they have put trust into new Prime Minister, and he has really made a substantial difference.
I think he also has to sort of choose, where he needs to leave things alone, because actually there's some progress being made. So I would give, you mentioned Shabana Mahmood, I actually think she's made a real impression as Home Secretary. I think, there's lots of issues there that are very complicated to resolve, and that's not a quick thing to do. But I think she has imprinted her personality. I think she is sure-footed, and I think she is strong and decisive. So I would let her carry on. There's other areas where he needs to give his attention. And I think the issue around growth and jobs, in some ways, trying to rethink what Keir Starmer said when he came in, when he said we're going to have these missions, we're going to focus somehow or another. That focus just went away, and he's got a chance to re-energise that, I think.
And I want to ask you about the sort of getting the Blairites back together, because that's your era of politics.
Well,
I want to ask you that
the
in a
male
second.
Blairites back together.
Yeah, well, I just wanted your thought about Shabana Mahmood there. It struck me that, so you used to work for William Hague, the former Foreign Secretary, Amanka. He wrote a very interesting column, I think it was this week or last week, talking about how ministers should be given time in their jobs rather than switching out Foreign Secretaries here and there. Yvette Cooper obviously wants to stay in her job. Shabana Mahmood apparently wants to stay as Home Secretary. How important is that to you?
I think it's absolutely crucial. I mean, think about a foreign secretary. Foreign secretary needs to be able to get to know their counterparts. They need to be able to go to UN Security Council, to NATO meetings, etc., and know who is sitting opposite whom and have those personal relationships. And if they do not exist because every 6 months or every year you change your foreign secretary, you got a real problem. The same thing about Home Secretary. If someone is doing a job that looks like it's addressing some of the major issues that we have in this country, don't just move them. Leave them to finish their job. But I really think it also helps. It doesn't only help that you are in the job, it sometimes helps that you were in the opposition preparing for a particular job, like William Hague was for 4 years before he became Foreign Secretary.
They've got a summer. Well, they haven't even got the summer.
Well, I think the other thing, and I agree with you, but I think the other thing about would be in Andy's interest as well is that, actually having Yvette there, she's in the role, she's found herself in the role. At the end of the day, the Prime Minister will turn up to the big events with all the other Prime Ministers and heads of states. But you do fundamentally need someone there who's doing the day in, day out work on the ground on that relationship. And that's really important. Absolutely. And you need someone politically to do it. So, again, whatever anybody thinks about, individuals, continuity to support the Prime Minister by your, top team is really important.
Does it matter that he's literally only had a few weeks to prepare for this point?
I think...
when you hear what I'm saying...
Let's be clear about... I heard an interview that Louise Haig gave, in which she very much intimated that, let's be absolutely clear about this, Andy hasn't been thinking about this all for a few weeks. This has been a longer trail in.
He's probably had the 4 years William Hague had.
Yes, he's probably had it at the back of his mind for years, for a decade maybe.
And he's finally got twice before, so so I think it's a longer trail that. And the other thing I would say about Andy is that, he has had important jobs in government and in opposition as well. And then he's got that other side of what he's done, which is 10 years in, one of our big northern cities, with all the issues there about growth and communities and, how we can use the powers from the centre more effectively through some devolution. So he brings all of that with him. So he's more tested in some ways, quite frankly, than Keir Starmer.
And he's got this Blairite team around him, or Brownite team.
It's like
from your era.
It's like,
anyway.
well, it used to be a boy band, now it's a man band coming back,
Well, he's the first female Prime Minister, though, apparently. Female Labour Prime Minister.
I missed that memo about that. Really,
right, okay,
really.
He's got so many women around him. He's basically the first.
Yeah, well, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. I'm not going to.
I remember you having a go about window dressing under, was it the Brown government?
I think one of the things about, and again about, the people that are rumoured to be coming back. What do they all share? They were all spads, and there is a spadocracy. And it's quite a male. And I often think as well, just thinking back over, 20 years, it's not that there weren't women working in those special advisor positions, but it was always tended to be the ones that were really known were the boys. because they were
Network.
closer. They were closer, and that was part of the problem, I think. So
Well, you're sitting next to a
where all
female
the-
former Spur.
No, but you've not put yourself up to be leader of the Tory
Not
party
so,
or
not
anything like this,
so
have
far.
you?
No.
There's still time.
Well, there's still time, but it does work like that, and I think it's
does.
interesting. And just thinking about the dynamics of politics and why we have really talented women. And I'm talking about the Labour Party in particular, because I would have loved to see, a woman leader of the Labour Party. What is it going on? And I think we have to think about that. That doesn't take away from the shine from Andy now, but we really have to think about that in the future, about why that doesn't happen, why women aren't being mentored by the big beasts in the party so they get that support and
The Tories have managed to do it without...
There is an opportunity to have a Deputy Prime Minister sitting in the number 10 North. So that could be a good introduction for a potential Prime Minister, woman Prime Minister coming from a Labour Party. And if she were to do really well and do what Andy did in Manchester...
What we need, though, is that when you talk about the male candidates, there's always a posse of male candidates who
true.
people say could be the leader.
Yeah.
We haven't had that for women
Yeah,
in the
Harriet
Labour
Harman was
Party.
making the same point on
We
this
haven't
show
had that.
a few days ago. Well, we're going to be discussing all of that more in just a moment. But now, the Home Secretary is planning to change the law to allow the deportation of a Rochdale grooming gang leader released from prison last week. But reports out of Pakistan suggest that the government there will refuse to accept him into their country. Shabana Mahmood's moves to remove Shabir Ahmed come in the wake of outrage by victims' groups at his release after he served 14 years of a 22-year sentence for 30 child rape offences. It's reported that Pakistan is demanding the extradition of 2 political dissidents from the UK in return for taking Ahmed. Well, all of this as the government remains under pressure for its broader prisoner early release scheme. At Prime Minister's questions yesterday, the Justice Secretary, David Lammy, standing in for Sir Keir Starmer, defended the policy after James Cleverly asked him whether he would apologise to the victims of grooming gangs. Mr Lammy took aim at the record of the previous Conservative government.
They left a system with just 83 empty cells. That's what the Justice Secretary previous to me inherited when she came into office. That's why we had to pass a sentencing scheme. He hasn't said what they would do now to fix the system. Of course, we think of every victim. And that's why we're notifying victims in discussion with all victims. I sat last week in my surgery with a victim of grooming gangs. All of us want to see offenders locked up. That's why we've got to have prison capacity.
Well, I've been speaking to the Victims Commissioner for England and Wales, Claire Waxman. Claire Waxman, you've asked the Prisons Minister to pause all early releases under the sentencing law in September. What response have you had?
So I wrote to the Minister early this week because I have very serious concerns around the early release of prisoners come September. I was given a lot of reassurance about what would take place to ensure that there was safeguarding for victims, good, clear, trauma-informed communication, and I'm afraid I didn't feel I had those reassurances. So I wrote to the Minister, and I have had responses immediately. I've been having meetings with him and his team to try and address some of the concerns that I raised in my letter.
So have they said they will pause all the early releases?
So they haven't confirmed that they will pause. There is an urgent need for them to release prisoners come September due to prison capacity. That's why they brought this
Because literally the jails would overflow if they didn't do this.
That is correct. So I think they will find it very difficult and challenging to pause, but I have to represent the voices and interests of victims in this country, and I've heard from far too many. Thousands received an appalling letter a few weeks ago notifying so many victims that their offenders would be released early without any clear information about what that really meant for them. What date and what's the safeguarding and how will I be safe? There was no reassurance in that letter.
But there's a terrible catch-22 here. Either the jails overflow and they literally can't jail anyone, or the jails don't overflow, they release people early, and women are endangered. Is that the situation here?
I mean, they are in an impossible situation. I mean, I think we have to be very clear. You know, this is a criminal justice system that they inherited, chronically underfunded, mismanaged for so many years. Prisons were closed with the last government. I think over 20 prisons were closed. So they did inherit this crisis within the prisons that were running out of spaces. So I understand the reasons why they have to do this, but I made it very clear the whole way along that if you are going to have to do this, then you have to ensure there is a gold standard service to these victims who will be very rightly upset, distressed, shocked, confused why their offender is coming out so much earlier than they thought. So we need to see clear trauma-informed communication at every stage to these victims. What does it mean for them? When are their offenders coming out? How are you going to keep me safe? What safeguards are in place?
But do you have any confidence that you're going to get those safeguards that you've demanded?
We are working very closely with the Minister and his team at this moment in time. I don't have the confidence as of today, but we are continuing to work with them to see that, that they can address those issues.
So how have victims reacted to this?
Well, victims have taken to social media. They've been talking to media as well. They've been contacting my office and so many others just to say how angry and upset and confused. Many have said to me it feels like a betrayal. It takes a lot of courage to come forward as a victim and report and to go through the criminal justice system, which we know is a very difficult process. It's a very delayed process. It can be a place of more harm and trauma for victims, but they've endured it. They've gone all the way through it. They've seen their offender convicted and sentenced, and then to find out that they're going to be coming out a few years earlier than they had been told and expected, it has caused such widespread anger and upset.
If you don't get what you want, the safeguards that you want, and if this new law is not paused, which seems impossible to do from what you've said, will you take this up with the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham?
Absolutely. It's a matter of priority for him. Because in the current state, we need to ensure that, firstly, the victims are communicated properly with and there's good service and support to them so that someone is working with them to talk to them about what their options are around safety. What are we going to do to keep them safe? Talking about tagging. Is tagging going to work? Is it going to be enforceable? People breach their tags. Are the police ready to arrest people? Are the courts ready? It's a wide system approach to this of safeguarding that we really need to see. Are we risk assessing everybody that's coming out in September? Are we sure that they are safe to come out? Are they safe for that victim? Are they safe for the public?
Well, even before this law comes in September and these people get released early, the Rochdale grooming gang leader, Shabir Ahmed, has been released early already. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, now says that the law is going to be changed to allow him to be deported, but Pakistan is refusing to take him back, apparently. So what more can be done? What could the new Prime Minister that you've been talking about, what can he do to focus minds on this or do more?
So I think the fundamentals have to happen, and that's about probation being ready. We've had an uplift of 700 million to go into probation. Are probation ready to be able to, firstly, risk assess the offenders that are coming out early, and are they going to be able to manage them in the community?
Are you disappointed that in his case he served 14 years of a 22-year sentence for 30 child rape offences? A lot of people look at that and just go, that does not sound like justice working on behalf of those victims, does it? What do you say to that?
Well, that's how it feels for a lot of victims. There's a number of issues with that. Firstly, many victims will say, I didn't feel that the sentence was long enough, but also the sentence is never clearly explained to victims. So for some victims, they don't quite understand when sentences run concurrently. What does that mean? Some people have much longer in their head, but that's not actually the reality of how much time that offender is going to serve. So we always come back to the same issue with victims. We do not give them clear, accurate, trauma-informed information throughout the whole criminal justice system to support them and manage their expectations throughout the process.
But it just all comes back to this sense that justice is not currently working for women. Do you think that is the case?
But it's not just women. I hear from male victims, I hear from victims where families have been impacted by murder and manslaughter. It doesn't feel like it's working for anyone. And that's a big issue because victims always feel like they're an afterthought.
The government says it's inherited a prison crisis, which you appear to accept. It's building 14,000 more prison places. I think the Tories closed 23 prisons themselves. So when you see the Conservative leader meeting grooming gang victims, do you feel, is that fair enough or is it a bit rich, given what they presided over?
I would hope that when they meet with the grooming gang victims and survivors, that they're very honest with them. And it would be nice if they actually apologised to them as well, because it was under the last government that we saw the prisons close. And that's why we are in this situation today. So I think we have to be very open and transparent with victims and survivors in this country, why we are in this position. I do commend them. They are trying to fight on behalf of those victims, but we also have to be realistic about what you can actually achieve. And that's why my focus is very much on, is the safeguarding framework in place? Are we risk assessing properly? Are we going to make sure everything's in place to keep that victim safe, to keep the public safe, and to make that victim feel reassured? You know, they are in the victims that have received those letters a few weeks ago. You cannot underestimate the impact that that information had on their lives. They weren't expecting it. It came out of the blue. They don't understand what it means for them, and it's caused a lot of trauma, upset, confusion and shock. Some people have been hospitalised on the back of it. Some people have been really ill, they can't work. People frantically thinking, do I need to move? We need to think more about victims in these processes.
Well, let's bring in Caroline and Arminka. Caroline first, this is one of the issues that will be top of Andy Burnham's in tray. It's just extraordinary that there's this catch-22 where either the jails overflow or women are endangered. I mean, how's it got to this point?
I mean, we've had decades of a lack of investment in our prison estate. I mean, I had 3 prisons in my constituency. We had another one in another constituency in Doncaster. We had 4 on our doorstep. And I think, you know, part of it is just that what is really difficult for the public to understand here is, and accept, is it seems that we're letting people out of prison early, not because they have gone through some sort of treatment or some rehabilitation, exactly, Cathy, but because we just can't cope with them on the estate. And
That's
I think
crazy,
for the public, that just lands really, really badly.
And Arminka, you worked on a Preventing Sexual Violence initiative when you were in the Foreign Office, and you know you'd really pushed that through government. When you think about what we've just heard, it's just extraordinary that women in this country are being exposed to this.
It is extraordinary, and if I can start by paying tribute to Claire, who's done amazing work. I worked with her on domestic violence bill, etc. And, starting with, I think it's not only that the prisons were closed, because it was about prisons that were too old and not fit for purpose, and therefore prison spaces were around 7,000, but new prison spaces have been created since. The problem is that offending has gone up too. And it is a catch-22. You don't know which way to go, whether to release someone who might reoffend, and not only that, but re-traumatise their previous victim or even offend again, or do you deal with prison? I think there has to be much more thought given to this. I find it really quite extraordinary that we could see like child sex offenders and rapists being released. There's got to be a better way, and I don't know what that is, but we have until September. You've got to think very hard about it because of those who have survived the initial harm.
What is the solution?
Well,
Can you come up with one?
We do have to have more places in prison. We have to accept that actually prison is actually a necessary answer to crime. And very much the most serious crime. Most people who get a custodial sentence today, and overwhelmingly the prison estate is made up of men, are for violent offences. Murder, manslaughter, assault and sexual offences, which I believe are violence in themselves as well. So that's what we're talking about. So when we have, the problem is that when we have we've had early release schemes before for people who've done burglary or what might be seen as petty crimes, but now we're talking about the vast bulk of people in our prisons and in there for real crimes against victims. Now, we've got to build more, and the Labour government's doing that, but they are in a rock and a hard place at the moment, and only 500 places were created, new places, in 14 years of Conservative administrations, and it's running to catch up, and that doesn't help victims. But one thing I would say is they have to make sure, as much as possible, not just letters, but probation and others are working with victims in the community, because that's the other side of this, about keeping people safe whilst these people are out.
Right, well, let's move from domestic affairs to foreign affairs now. And to the Middle East, where there are fears that tit-for-tat missile exchanges between Iran and the United States could lead to a resumption of a regional war. Iran today launched missiles at US bases across the region, including in Jordan. The United States attacked dozens of sites in Iran, but denied Iranian claims that one airstrike targeted the area around the country's only nuclear power plant. Just in the last few minutes, we've been getting reports that 6 explosions have been heard in Iran's Bushehr County. In Westminster, Foreign Office Minister Hamish Faulkner has been condemning Iran's actions.
We strongly condemn the outrageous Iranian attacks on the territory or vessels of our Gulf partners, Bahrain, Qatar, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. This is a serious escalation, strikes into countries in the region and their waters are a clear violation of international law and must stop. I have been in touch with my counterparts from all mentioned countries to express our solidarity and condemn these attacks.
Let's bring in Caroline and Arminka. Arminka, this is one of those forever wars that Trump said he'd end, isn't it? I mean, it's beginning to look like that.
Well, it looks like it, and it looks like it is a war that we didn't need. They didn't need, we didn't need it. Internet, economy, global economy didn't need it. We are in it now, or we are less so than the United States and some other countries. And I think it's a war that needs to see an end to it. Now, whether we have two sides that are prepared to find compromise and to find a solution to it, that is a big question.
Well, the answer to that question is no, isn't it?
Not for the moment, but, the pressures are going to be both on Washington and Tehran, I hope, such that they will have to make a decision that they move forward in terms of finding the way out what has been disaster for the region, for the United States and for Iranian people as well.
When you talk about pressures in Washington, I mean, you're really looking at the midterms coming up. Some of Trump's own supporters are now putting serious pressure on him to make a deal, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, because, Americans are feeling pain at home. The prices are going up, petrol prices going up. Life is not as easy as it used to be. And some of them are seeing Iran as one of the reasons for that pain, and they want to see a change.
It's interesting, Caroline, because Andy Burnham's been saying a few things on foreign policy in the last 24 hours, including an interview he did with The Guardian. He said he'd put more pressure on the Israeli government. He said Labour didn't get it right in response to the war in Gaza. It's quite a pitch for Green voters to return, isn't it?
Well, I mean, the situation with Israel is that I think, I would agree that Netanyahu has not been helpful in terms of what we need to see happen in the region, both to protect Israel, but also to find some peaceful solutions the way forward. So let's see how that manifests itself with Andy. I mean, again, I think the situation in Iran is a good example where actually, ironically, Keir Starmer keeping us out of that conflict. Of course, we did lend aid later on, but keeping out of it initially actually was a positive for him, but it wasn't enough to see him through. Fundamentally here, we've got all these... What was it? President Trump referred to the Iranian establishment as scum this week and all this sort of thing. And meanwhile, we know behind the scenes, people are still talking. End of the day, no matter how many insults he throws at people, he's got to find a negotiation.
Arminka, is Burnham right to say he would put more pressure on the Israeli government?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I hope he's going to put pressure on the Israeli government, not because he wants votes from the Greens, but because it's the right thing to do. I mean, both, I must say, my own party and the government have got it wrong in a way, because there is a massive gap between the people of this country who are seeing what is happening in the Middle East and if you want, opposition and the government and the way that how they have judged it. We have to move forward from where we are now. And I hope that the future Prime Minister is going to be more able to actually take concrete action rather than talk a big talk, because that is the only thing that is going to solve it. And he will, again, have those few golden hours or golden months in which he can do it. Later on, he will have already had too much in his in tray, and this is going to be just a burden.
Let's move on for now. Well, is suffering part of Englishness? Because it certainly felt that way to England fans watching the epic victory against Mexico in the early hours of Monday morning. And that is the view of David Baddiel, co-writer of the song that's impossible to avoid whenever England reach the latter stages of any football tournament. He joined me on the sofa a little earlier as the Three Lions prepare for their quarter-final showdown with Norway. He's coming in.
Oh,
he's coming.
beautifully done.
You haven't heard that one before, have you?
Look at that. Hello.
Come and sit down on my sofa.
I've dressed sort of like an old-style footballer. Is that OK?
You have.
I mean, it's hot, primarily.
Very, very old
I'm
style,
not actually in costume, but
No,
there is a
don't
part of
worry.
me, like if you wear great big old shorts like this, it feels like I'm playing in 1957.
David, let's get this out of the way first. Is it coming home or not?
It's interesting, that question. I get asked it a lot. It's the thing
I'm
I get
sure you
asked
do.
most in my life now by people, whether they be people like yourself or people on the street, stopping me in the street and saying, Dave, is it coming home? And of course, the first thing to say is that phrase didn't necessarily mean we're going to win.
Yeah. It's not an arrogant thing.
It's definitely not. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be just a kind. Well, it refers to the fact that the song was written in 1996 when football literally came to England, and England is theoretically the home of football because we codified the rules first of all. So let me say all that.
Yeah. That's your disclaimer.
So that Luka Modric, who in 2018 apparently riled up the Croatian side against us by saying they think they own football. Listen to that song, right? Just it's okay, Luka. Don't think that. Okay.
Chill out.
It's not an arrogant song. It's actually quite a vulnerable song. So, but if we have to take it to be, are we going to win? Well, here's what I think. I was a little bit critical, I have been, on social media of some of the squad selections. Partly because I've been doing this podcast, which I came on here to talk about a while ago, called 60 Years of Her, about Englishness and football. And I was always bothered about the fact that when I was growing up and starting to like football, England tended to not pick its most maverick players. It didn't pick, its Rodney Marshes and these won't mean anything to you, I don't think, but Stan Bowles, Tony Curry, Frank Worthington. These names won't mean anything to you, but they wouldn't pick them because there was a sense in which, we've got to have these kind of stoic, duty men who can really, do the jobs we give them. We can't have fancy Dans. And it felt a bit to me like Thomas Tuchel had gone a bit that way by not picking Cole Palmer or Phil Foden or Trent Alexander-Arnold or James Wharton or a few of these other, Morgan Gibbs-White, lots of these sort of really interesting players. And he's gone for really fast, really physical players. And so I wasn't sure about that. And I'm still not sure about it. But what I think is that he's got an idea of how to make this team cohere into a sort of a team with amazing heart and amazing spirit and a sense of identity and a sense that they really know who they are and what they're playing for and what their football thing is. And
but they are still making us suffer.
No, making us suffer is part of that. I think making us suffer is part of Englishness, I think. I mean, although to be fair, the Germans have made Germany suffer. Argentina have hardly not made Argentina suffer recently. So maybe that's just part of suffering. The only team, even France. But one of the interesting things, here's the other thing why I think it might be coming home. It's a very invidious thing to say. But sometimes teams are brilliant straight out of the box. And the only team that's really been like that is France in this tournament. And then sometimes teams at tournaments sort of stutter gradually into life as the tournament goes on. And that would be England in this tournament. They've played a lot of... They looked brilliant against Croatia, but then their light went out against Ghana. England have done a thing whereby they seem to be finding how to play and finding who they are as the tournament goes on, with a lot of things going wrong. I like Thomas Tuchel's, as it were, in-game intelligence. He's someone who seems to be able, which Gareth Southgate wasn't so good at, about watching a game, seeing it go wrong and trying to fix it. He seems really good at that, and he's good at shouting from the touchline. I've seen a lot of him shouting.
And using the tea breaks. They're not called tea breaks,
they're not called tea breaks. They're
You know
called
what I
hydration
mean?
breaks. But what they are is ad breaks. Let's be clear about that.
Exactly.
They are ad breaks, but they are called hydration breaks, and he uses them well,
Just coming back to It's Coming Home, or whether it is or isn't, it was interesting because Frank Skinner said recently that it's now all about Manchester and Wonderwall and, you've got a new Prime Minister coming in.
Did he say that?
Manchesterism, yeah. Well, he sort of alluded to that.
Right.
Has he got a point? I mean, are other songs supplanting the Three Lions?
No, because Three Lions is a football song. And none of these other songs are football songs.
Written for the purpose.
It's written as Wonderwall's a brilliant song, by the way. And I really like Wonderwall much more than Sweet Caroline, which is the last song to do this.
Me too.
But this is what happens. And actually, I really like what's happening at the moment, which is that when the game finishes, which is brilliant, no other team has this, they put on Three Lions. If you listen, when the players are falling down with exhaustion or hugging each other because they've won or shaking hands, they're playing Three Lions in the background and the crowd are joining in. And then when things settle down, that's over, and they play the next song, which is Wonderwall, and that's when the team goes over and does that, and I find that really moving. But it's not a football song. One thing I think they've done, which I quite like, is the England team line up to hear Wonderwall like a wall, like a football wall. So when the crowd sing, "You're my Wonderwall," it does sound a little bit like they do mean it in a football way.
But Three Lions, that will stay, the first song,
I hope so. I hope so. It's the GOAT. I've said it.
It is, yeah. I mean, and, you wrote it when England hosted Euro 96, didn't you? And, of course, now co-host of the World Cup, the US, controversial host. What did you think of Trump's decision to intervene with FIFA? Did that besmirch the beautiful game?
Yeah, but more interestingly, I thought was his decision to talk about it, because I thought that was so Trump. What I thought was brilliant was that there's all these rumours flying about the USA have got Balogun's red card suspended, right? And that seems really like dodgy, and like it's obviously about trying to keep the USA in the tournament, even though that completely failed. And everyone's like talking about it. And a sort of different president, if they'd done that, if they'd called Infantino, would have kept quiet about it.
Yeah.
Trump, and this so demonstrates his narcissism, once he realises that that's the centre of attention, that everyone's talking about that, he has to do a press conference where he says, yes, I did. Yeah. I called him and I said, he said a brilliant thing. I mean, I did laugh out loud. He said, I don't know what a red card is. I have no idea what a red card is, but I know that wasn't a foul. Well, you can't know both those things.
Yeah,
that's completely... If you don't know what a red card is, you don't know whether that's a foul. So I find it hilarious. And then I was pleased. I mean, justice was kind of... I mean, by the way, I think America have played some really good football. That's the shame. Is that America have actually played some really good football in this tournament. Then I think they maybe got distracted or whatever. And Belgium... let's not forget, have had for years a kind of golden generation of amazing players who tend not to quite do it at the final stage. And then they did. They played brilliantly in that game. So it was kind of justice being served, I guess.
You've written about football and, you know, seeing it through a prism, who we are as a country. I'm going to just zoom out and look at that in a sort of global context because, you know, we've talked about Trump. You've got Nigel Farage, Trump's mini-me, putting himself forward for re-election in Clacton. Count Bimface, the only opponent. Yeah. What does that tell us about who we are and where democracy is at?
Well, yeah, I did a podcast for BBC Sounds about the meaning of Englishness via football, but you could find the meaning of Englishness via many, many things. And one of them is definitely the fact that we have these mad people, by which I include Nigel Farage, standing for office.
Well, you were going with Count
No,
Bimface.
I did. That's what occurred to me. And then halfway through, I thought I might as well say Nigel Farage. But yeah, you have people like Count Bimface. I mean, it seems to be mainly Count Bimface.
Yeah,
I remember in the old days, it used to be the Monster Raving Loony Party and then loads of other people. But now it's mainly Count Bimface is the star of the mad party thing.
Seriously, though, what does it say about the state of our democracy that we've got, you know, the 7th Prime Minister in 10 years coming in? Something's going very wrong, isn't it?
Last time I was on this show, we talked about... What did we talk about? There was a thing where...
You felt sorry for Keir
No, I tell you,
Starmer.
the thing went viral was me saying I felt sorry for Keir Starmer. And as I've said to you before on this show, the thing about talking on any show like this is you get clipped and then you get taken out of context. And the thing that will get... No, you don't know if you're going to clip it, but might get taken out of context here is there's a very banal answer, unfortunately, to what you're saying, which is... There's lots of reasons, but the prime reason is social media. The social media has created a clipped culture, a culture where everything's very quick, everything's very fast, everything's very binary, and there isn't much nuance, and there isn't much... And everyone's on a team, and everyone hates everyone else who's on the other team. And what you get as a result of that is sort of very extreme, sort of mad politics, I think. And it's not great for our culture. It's kind of hilarious at some level, all that you've just said. I mean, one of the things, though, one of the things that I do always think is, as someone, I don't have, like, a political stance that I come from. I haven't had for ages. I don't map.
You used to support Labour.
Yeah, but I don't have any... Now I think, what do I think? Right? I don't think I'm left-wing or right-wing, so I have to think like that. I just think, what do I think? And therefore, the place I go to mainly is psychology. What's the psychology of this? And I have to say, the psychology of Nigel Farage, having a kind of mad... fit about the stuff that's bothering him and deciding I'm going to resign and stand again in order to prove that the people love me. It's sort of weird. That's a very odd stunt to pull.
It has been done before.
Has it? Who did it before?
Well, David Davis did it in a similar way.
Oh, I just didn't know. See, I'm not interested in politics. There you go. Who knows that David Davis did that? Did he?
Well, it was a slightly different justification.
OK.
But, you know... Anyway, what I wonder is whether your very meta clip about why, you know, whether this will go viral. What you've just said.
I don't know. We're in a really meta place. I don't know.
We really are.
What's the camera? What camera am I on? Right? OK. No, that's the most meta thing that's ever happened, was just flicking around my face and your face. But, yeah, I don't know whether it's going to go viral. My point is that when you interview people, I have said this to you maybe before, but I think that one of the things that's problematic for me, because I spend all my time thinking I just want to say something that I really think and not curate what I'm saying. But it's very hard because you spend all your time on a show like this thinking, oh, but
What's going to travel?
Yeah, and if this goes viral, then it's just going to be a lot of people saying X, Y, and Z, and so therefore that gets in the way of authentic speaking.
But we've had an authentic conversation.
Yeah, well, that's because I can do it, but I can get it out of my head. But, like, even that thing that I just said about Nigel Farage and what's the psychology of it, obviously there's going to be reform people out there, you know, deciding to hate me, even though I'm not actually saying something political there. I'm not that bothered about the politics of it. What I'm interested in is that seems to me to be an odd psychological need to do that.
Just finally, Andy Burnham, assuming it's him, will come in the day after the World Cup final.
Oh, is that when he's coming in? The day after the World Cup final?
July 20th. World Cup final's July 19th.
Yeah, I know when the World Cup final is.
I just want to check that I haven't got that wrong.
I absolutely know when the final is. I don't know when Andy Burnham will be coronated.
Well, that's when he's going to be coronated.
Right. Coronated is not a verb, by the way, but I just said it.
It is actually.
Oh, is it? OK.
Yeah. I didn't think it was either, but I checked that.
OK.
However, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
So I want your predictions.
Yeah.
Who's going to do better, Andy Burnham as Prime Minister or the England team on July the 19th?
Well, if England get to the final...
Oh, you sound quite slightly sceptical.
No, if England... I mean, they've got to beat Norway, who've got Erling Haaland in it. And by the way, can I just say one other thing? I will answer your question, but I should have said, when you said, is it coming home? Each World... Not every World Cup, but a lot of World Cups have often been defined by one man. 1986, Maradona. 1982 by Paolo Rossi. You know, basically, it is possible that this World Cup will be Erling Haaland's World Cup. It's possible, because he is unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. And
so your prediction is...
that's what we need to do, is if we can contain Erling Haaland, we can win this World Cup. Because we will be cheating destiny. And
what's your prediction for Norway, though, the game versus Norway?
Well, as I say, I don't know. It totally depends on whether we can contain Haaland.
No, but give me your prediction.
What, a
give
score?
Me your bet. Yeah.
No, I'm not going to give you a score.
You don't do that?
No, I don't do that.
Because that would go viral as well.
No, it won't, because I'll be wrong. What I think is that they have to get the defence sorted out. Here's our problem. If you want to... I've got to get football-y for a minute.
Yeah.
So the problem is that he did choose some slightly odd selections, which means we don't have a lot of cover at right-back. He should have taken Trent Alexander-Arnold, and Kwanzaa isn't a right-back. That's not his full-time job at Bayer Leverkusen. So, therefore, it was a bit of a centre-back's challenge that led to him being sent off, and Reece James is still not fit, so he has to find a way around that. And all of this means that we might be screwing up the defence when the best attacker in the world is about to play against us. So that is a problem, but we might still get around it.
God, this is the most football we've ever had on this show in its almost 3 months of history.
I know, I could go on, but I probably shouldn't.
Political prediction next. Is Andy Burnham going to be more successful?
Well, no, if England win the World Cup, right, I'm going to say it out loud. If they do, no Prime Minister is going to be as successful as that. In fact, I think you'll find that when England did win the World Cup in 1966, who was Prime Minister? Harold Wilson?
Yeah, I think so.
Right, he was not as successful in terms of his memory and place in the English culture as that 1966 team. No one is still singing about Harold Wilson and the pound in your pocket, right? But people are, still singing about the 1966 football team.
But if we've just had a terrible defeat, we haven't got to the final... Andy Burnham, it's all to play for, basically, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know that much about Andy Burnham. I think something very British, which is probably true enough about other countries as well, but certainly in Britain, is Andy Burnham does have something of that sort of... He seems like a sort of nice bloke, right? And sort of he's quite well put together in a kind of, you know, modern dad kind of way.
Is he the Harry Kane of politics?
No, he's definitely not. No. I mean, I say that because, and no disrespect to Andy Burnham, but Harry Kane is a massive talent. And in my opinion, sorry to say this, and this might go viral, no politician is a massive talent.
Wow.
Harry Kane is a massively more talented person than any politician.
And seemingly very nice and modest.
No, he seems like a lovely guy. But to be that good at football, that is something unbelievable. Whereas
so
to be able
to
be like Andy Burnham, which is good, like, you know, to be able to impress people with how you're a straight-up guy and you're northern and you're nice and you're good at this and you've done well in Manchester. I mean, that's great. But it's not like scoring that goal, you know, the various goals that Harry Kane has scored that are unbelievable.
Well, you heard mention there of the upcoming Clacton by-election. Here on your screen are all of those we're aware of who have declared that they're running. Let's go to Caroline and Arminka then. Caroline, Andy Burnham's no Harry Kane. I mean, brutal but true, right?
Look, Harry Kane has proved himself to be a genius footballer, a great leader and a captain, and he's got a very good role model to follow as he in the next week or so becomes Prime Minister. So, yeah, I mean, I think it was just interesting listening to David there about, you know, when we did last win it, obviously Harold Wilson, I think, was the Prime Minister. You know, he had his own problems towards the end, so his tenure as Prime Minister in the country. So, yeah, I'm with David on this. If we win, I don't want to jinx it. Is this wood? Touch wood. If we win the World Cup, there isn't a politician, male or female, who would be able to hold a candle to the glory that we will all revel in.
But football is interlinked with politics, isn't it, these days?
Oh, yes, it is. But it is interlinked, but it's going to give a great boost to the Prime Minister. Well, I mean, just imagine
not if we lose.
If we win, then it's going to be like a party like there's never been that we can remember. And that will be a great start. If we lose, then it's going to be a little bit of, well, let's go back to normal.
Apparently a bank holiday on the Friday.
Yeah.
People were saying it was going to be the Monday straight after on the 20th, but I understand the latest news is it would be the Friday.
Although the NHS is saying it's going to be very difficult, you know, either way, and they'll sort of talking for a delay. But you've got divided loyalties for this game, haven't you? Because you're a bit Norwegian. So how do you feel about this? Is England going to beat Norway?
No.
Can you be excited about that?
Well, I am rooting for England to beat Norway.
Good.
Norway was my number 2 team. If England, and I don't want to jinx it, went out of the competition. In fact, I was in Norway a week or so ago, and there was a Norwegian game on and there was an England game, and with family and friends we actually watched both, and both did well, and that was great. Now I've got the nightmare scenario on Saturday, but no, I'm with England all the way.
Well, you're winning anyway on Saturday. Someone will.
Exactly, you can't lose. You got England colours on, haven't you?
I've got the bunting and everything, Cathy. Listen, I've got
wearing
flags, bunting, everything, you know.
Arminka, you're going to be watching?
Of course I will.